Hi everyone, this is Bankim Samaddar. I am a PhD scholar from Practice Track, Economics area, batch 3. I'll speak about something that we all depend upon, electricity, specifically the distribution system, the last mile that brings power to our homes, shops, offices, and factories. My thesis is organized in a simple arc, shock system and solution, to explain three persistent issues in the sector. The issues are inequality in electricity consumption, electricity theft, and why reforms do not work equally well everywhere. So, coming over to the first essay, it is titled Availability Shock and Electricity Use Inequality in India Evidence and Mechanism from COVID 19 Era. During COVID 19 lockdown, many goods and services were stopped. However, electricity supply mostly continued. That created a clean window into inequality. Who could sustain electricity use when everything else was constrained? I used billing data from Maharashtra and track local areas month by month from 2018 to 2023. I summarize inequality in electricity use with electric Gini, like the income Gini, but built from electricity units billed per consumer. Key finding is that electricity consumption inequality rose during the pandemic, but not uniformly. National lockdown impacted inequality with a lag, but partial lockdown impacted with immediate effect. I also found that household inequality spiked under partial lockdown. So did the commercial units in semi-urban areas. However, interestingly, the rural households witnessed a fall in inequality, which could be due to the government support that rural and poor people received. Through SA1, I could demonstrate that the billing data can act like a high frequency inequality thermometer for the shocks like COVID 19. It is important to mention also that my essay on inequality using electric Gini is a pioneering study, as this is the first one to use large scale monthly consumption data to look into inequality. That brings us to essay 2, which is titled Beyond Price, Income and Inequality, Role of Governance in Electricity Theft in India, 2013 to 2023. The focus parameter is AT&C, which is used as a theft proximate. AT&C loss is aggregate technical and commercial loss. In plain terms, out of 100 units entering into a state's distribution system, how many units do not turn into collected revenue? Some loss is technical in the form of heat loss in the wires or the conversion loss in the transformers. It also includes billing inefficiency, non-collection, and theft. So AT&C loss is the theft inclusive parameter, not pure theft. So I build a state by year dataset for all the states and union territories of India for the study period of 11 years. And I compare AT&C loss with transmission and distribution loss, that is T&D loss. This is the second parameter is the one which the earlier panel studies referred as the indicator of theft. Through my research, I found that for AT&C loss, which is closer to theft than T&D loss, for the AT&C loss, governance and political incentives matter more than price and poverty or inequality. Losses are higher, that means theft is higher, where enforcement and administrative capacity are weaker. It is higher also for those states where the opposition rules the state. This is a manifestation of political forbearance. Once these governance factors are accounted for, then within state tariff changes or unemployment or inequality, they do not have much impact or significance on movement of AT&C losses in these states. For TND laws, the story is quite different. They track scale and engineering factors more closely. So we should not equate TND loss and AT&C loss as the same indicator of which is the indicator of theft. It is important to discuss that why we are worried about theft. That means the energy that we fail to collect, the revenue. Collecting revenue matters because if you do not collect, then we somehow want to recover that non-collected amount, either through higher tariffs from paying consumers or through larger subsidies from a state budget or postponed maintenance and capital expenditure for the state utilities. That is why high agency losses often show up later as unreliable supply, more outages, or bigger discount debts. In my data, once we control for state fixed effects and national year effects, average tariff changes by themselves do not reliably move AT&C loss within a state. What moves AT&C more and consistently are proxies for administrative capacity and credibility. So it is how well the state can measure, bill, and enforce, plus political incentive frictions that determine AT&C loss. In practical terms, if a consumer believes that billing is arbitrary or enforcement is selective, then the compliance drops. So if the billing is accurate and predictable, and subsidies are targeted and paid on time, then compliance improves. This sets up the reform question in my essay 3. That is why the same national scheme delivers very different results across the states. In short, durable loss reduction is less a price story and more a credibility story, whether billing, collection, and enforcement are consistent and fair. That brings us to essay 3, the impact of reforms. I evaluate two flagship reforms, Uday and RDSS. Uday was launched in 2015, RDSS in 2021 for 18 major states from 2013 to 2023. I found that Uday didn't have any major effect, or rather any effect on the losses. Uday is more or less like a financial restructuring and loss shifting than deep operational consolidation. On the other hand, RDSS shows conditional physical gains. High loss states start worse but make up faster on the RDSS era. Finally, I also found that both the schemes, they act on fundamentals like when the state is capable, like which shows up in income, industrial structure, tax effort, connectivity, and debt burden. So if the state is good in these factors, then the reforms work better. So reforms works as a capacity multiplier rather than a substitute of state capacity. Now that brings us to the close of my thesis. I would end up by saying that electricity is not merely a commodity. It is an institutional mirror. During shocks, electricity data reveals resilience and inequality. In normal times, losses reveal the reach and credibility of governance. So this thesis comes to an end, and I thank you for listening to this presentation.